This is my 2013 Kia Ceed GT.
And this isn't the original engine.
And that's because after trying to diagnose a misfire issue with this car, we found out that in 2019, the original engine actually blew up, leaving a hole in the engine block.
So they decided to put this engine in, and if you look closely, there are actually some differences.
The first one is the radiator cap. On the newer engines, this is actually blanked off. The header tank is actually a complete different shape on the newer engines and also has a pipe going from the inlet manifold to that tank. And also a huge giveaway was this bolt that was jammed in one of the coolant hoses held in with a Jubilee clamp.
And I've tried pretty much everything I can to fix this misfire with this car.
But now I'm actually starting to run low on options of things that I can actually do or check to try and get to the bottom of it. And if I can't, it's going to jeopardise my goal of getting up to a supercar. But for now, I've got a few more things to actually try before I deem this car as unrepairable.
So, right now, I'm actually not sure what the end result of this car is going to be. Whether we have to move it on and take a step backwards to go forwards again because we can't get to the bottom of it, I'm not sure. But in this video, I've got a few more things to try, with the last option being a £700 repair. I'm hoping that's not the worst case scenario, but for now, we've got a few more things to actually do.
The first of which is that engine light that has been on since we picked this car up, and it needs to go. That is the P2261 turbo bypass valve error that we have on the dashboard. And after Woodbury Garage did a smoke test on the car, we actually found that the solenoid that is just under this boost pipe going to the intercooler had actually cracked, perished, and was leaking air just before the diverter valve, which is also known as the turbo bypass valve.
And to fix that issue, I've actually got this, which is a brand new solenoid that we can take that one off, replace with this one, and that should be that engine light gone. Let's get it done.
To remove the old solenoid, I've just got to take off the 3 vacuum lines going to it and then disconnect the electrical connector.
Well, that just shows how knackered that one is.
And of course, getting the new one in was pretty simple because all you have to do is do everything in reverse order.
Boom. Done. One solenoid replaced.
And judging by the old one, that is 100% going to be the reason we have got an engine light on. This was leaking boost pressure and it literally snapped off the end. So we can tick that off the board, which means we have now completed everything that we wanted to do when we first got this car.
And I don't think that is going to be the solution to the misfire, but it is a problem ticked off the list. So we can go into the diagnostics and actually clear that fault code from the ECU.
And to do this, I'm going to be using my new XTOOL IP919 Pro. This scan tool is an amazing bit of kit, allowing me to diagnose all these cars myself. I will leave a link to XTOOL in the description below, and you can also use my discount code on the screen for a huge 15% off.
And there we go, we have no stored codes, we have no pending codes, and we have no permanent codes. So that is a full house. We can now exit out of the ECU. Well, that is now all of the issues taken care of with this Kia Ceed GT, except of course that misfire. And I have got a few other options left to check with this car before I actually deem it unrepairable and have to decide what the outcome is.
Each one of them options gets increasingly more expensive as we go on, with the first one being free and the last one being a £700 repair.
But I guess we won't know whether we have to pay £700 or not until we try the other few options, and the first one is actually on the scan tool.
Now, something we don't know for certain is if there is any differences with the engine control module and the actual engine itself compared to the old one. So what I'm going to do now is head over back to the scan tool and see if I can just reset all the adaptive values. Now, I think I would be lying if I said that this one wasn't a little bit optimistic, but with everything that we've checked, I guess we've got to cover all grounds. So it's worth a try. By just clicking one button, we can simply just reset all the values of the car so it will relearn what it's supposed to do. Okay, the car's making some weird noise, but that is done. I think we all know the outcome of this one, but imagine, just imagine, this all along has been the problem and all I needed to do is just reset the values, but yeah, I guess we'll see. This is a cold start. The car hasn't been turned on once today, so it is definitely going to be cold. Just as I thought, it's still misfiring. Now, although that hasn't worked, it didn't cost us anything and it was definitely worth a shot. But the next thing I've got to try is something that you guys have been begging me to actually change in the comment section, and I think it's time I bite the bullet, spend the money and actually change it.
And that, of course, is this VVT solenoid.
This is the variable valve time solenoid. In one of the previous videos, I actually removed it and found that it was full of oil and debris, so I decided to clean it and refit it. And after doing so, a lot of people in the comment section were telling me to actually replace it because it could have failed internally.
And for the price of £15, I have got a brand spanking new one that we might as well just chuck on to 100% eliminate that. So let's get it on.
Luckily, swapping this VVT solenoid is a really simple job. There's just one 10mm bolt holding it in, and obviously the plastic connector that goes to the wiring harness.
Let's get some bets in the comment section below if that is going to make a difference or not. I don't think it will.
Ignition on.
And of course, it misfires. I'm really starting to run out of options. This may just beat me. I do not know what is wrong with this car, but there is one last thing we can check, which of course is the big job. And you might be wondering, is it the ECU I'm talking about? Is it a new engine I'm talking about? No, it is actually this, which is the high pressure fuel pump. Apparently, these can go faulty internally, but be showing on the live data that they are working fine. And I guess that is kind of the only other option I have got.
So here's my thinking. With this misfire only happening when the car has sat for a while, maybe the fuel pump is leaking pressure internally. So when I turn the car back on after it misfires, it's already built enough pressure to be able to sustain itself and not misfire. But then once I leave the car to sit overnight, the fuel pump might be leaking pressure out, so when we turn it back on in the morning, it is then overfueling just to keep itself alive. This is a theory that may not be correct, but it's something that I've got to look into. The only problem now is to replace this fuel pump. It is £700. But luckily for me, after speaking to Josh, who is a master tech at Kia, he's actually managed to get his hands on one that I can borrow and test this theory.
If we put his high pressure fuel pump on my car and then I come to it the next morning and it doesn't misfire, then we at least know for sure that it is the high pressure fuel pump. If it is, then I may just have to fork out the £700 to get a new one, just so I don't let this car beat me. But we will cross that bridge when we get to it. He has actually said that I can take the car to him tonight, swap that fuel pump and then go from there. So let's go do it.
So I'm going to jump in the car and head over to Wolverhampton, where I'm going to be swapping pumps with Josh so we can test this theory before I actually commit to spending that £700. If the car still carries on misfiring once we've fitted this fuel pump, then at least we know that that wasn't the issue and we've saved that money. All we've got to do now is pray that this actually works. So Josh is going to get my old fuel pump out, swap it with the other one, and then we can just see what happens.
Right, that is the pump changed. The car starts absolutely fine with no misfiring, even though all the pressure was let out that pump, and that pump was an old pump. I guess all we've got to do now is drive home, leave it overnight, and we'll see. We'll see. Fingers crossed. We are now back, and all that's left to do now is leave this car to sit all night, come out tomorrow, start it, and if that has been the problem all along, it shouldn't misfire. If this doesn't work, this is unrepairable. I don't know what else it could be. Let's go to bed and see what happens in the morning. Well, it is now the next morning. It has been sat all night long, and if I turn it on now and it doesn't misfire, then it has been that high pressure fuel pump that has been the problem from day one, and I have been chasing my tail trying to find any solution that I possibly can, when all along that pump has just been laughing at me, literally in my face, right there on top of the engine. There's something in me that is telling me this isn't going to work, because the amount of times this car has led me down a path and brought me to a dead end is, well, countless. But let's try it. Let's just try and start the car. This is it. This is it. I'm just going to go for it. I'm literally just going to go for it. Still misfiring. What could it be? I literally do not understand what it can be. I was hoping that was going to be it. Well, in all fairness, there does become a point where you actually stop and tell yourself how much money, how much time and how much effort am I going to have to put into this car for it to still have that same issue. I'm assuming the fate of this car and the fate since 2019 has been that no one can get to the bottom of it, so it's just been passed around from owner to owner who has had an attempt at trying to fix it. But we've added that VVT solenoid to the board, which was £14. We've spent all this money and the car has still got that misfire. I really don't know what to do. I actually don't know what to do with this one. I had a proper suspicion that it could have been just a faulty fuel pump, and I was genuinely excited to be able to put this car up for swaps and move it on, but I don't even know what to do. Like, I don't know what to even suggest to myself.
But then while I was out driving the car, I actually thought of a little theory in my head that is definitely worth a chance.
Okay, I wasn't even heading out to film, but something just come to my head that I've been doing with this car for a while, and it's only just crossed my mind. I've been putting E10 in this car, which we've just done some Googling, and apparently on these G4 FJ engines, it can affect the cold start and it can lead it to having rough idle. Now, with everything actually working on the car and the amount of things I've tested, tried, bought and installed, imagine if it has just been running on the wrong fuel, and by turning it on and off it kind of just adapts itself, or leaving it to idle for 30-40 seconds it calculates itself. I don't know, but I'm about to go literally put half a tank
of E5 in the car, 99 V-power. Imagine this is the problem, is it's just had the wrong fuel in it, and this car needs 99, which would make perfect sense because it's a GT. Another thing that's worth a try, let's just go see. I know I might be clutching at straws with this one, but the way this car has turned out, and I think for my own sanity, I have to try quite literally everything until I actually give up with this car. So I've got to rule out every single option because I am having sleepless nights trying to figure out what is the problem. So I'm going to put some V-power in and we're just going to see what happens. And after driving the car around just a little bit to get that fuel through all of the system, it was time to leave it for a few hours and come back to it a bit later tonight and see if it's made a difference.
Of course it misfires. Right, worth a try, but that is not the answer.
And once again, everything I have tried has not been successful. So what I'm going to do, instead of chasing my tail outside on the driveway, I'm going to spend a good few hours in front of the computer just doing some research in case there's some little tiny bits of information buried in a forum that I have missed that might be substantial and give me any sort of insight into what the problem could be. And after quite literally sitting on my laptop for hours, I actually managed to find this video. This is quite literally almost identical to what my car is doing, and the caption of that video was that he's having extremely rough idle on cold start, popping and banging that sounds like a misfire that then calms down after 1 to 2 minutes, which is exactly what my car is doing. And at the time of me actually finding this post, the guy was yet to find the issue with the car, but then I received a message the day after telling me that he'd actually solved it.
And after speaking to the person with that problem, his car is now fixed. And what he did is something I haven't actually changed on my car. So we actually might have found the problem, because since that video, he has actually replaced the crankshaft position sensor with an OEM part. He basically said that he changed that sensor to an aftermarket part and the issue still remained. So he tried to diagnose the rest of the car and then ended up going back to the crankshaft position sensor and just changing it with a OEM Kia part, and that has solved his issue. He also went on to say that these engines on a cold start do actually run rough anyway. And once we have got to the bottom of the issue, it is very normal for it to run rough for about 5 seconds and then absolutely fine. So that is something that is definitely very good information. So the next thing for me to do now is check the crankshaft position sensor that is in this car and see if we can order one from Kia.
And with this being the first time I've actually found anyone else having the similar issue to me, I'm actually quite hopeful that this might work. So I'm going to get the car jacked up and then I want to go underneath and look for this, which is the crankshaft position sensor. All I've got to do now is disconnect it from the top of the engine bay and then go back underneath and undo the 10mm bolt holding it to the gearbox.
Boom. So this is in fact a OEM part, but it is covered in oil and it looks like it's kind of started corroding a little bit by the looks of things. Now obviously I'm going to give this a clean and put it back in for now, but at least we have got the part number off that sensor, and where that sensor actually plugs into is just up here, and then obviously that goes into this wiring harness, which I'm assuming will go to the cam position sensors, which there is one here and one back there, and they work in sync to give the car the correct timing, so the coils can fire at the same time, the spark plugs can fire at the same time, and of course the injectors. So if this is bad, This could be the issue. This literally could be the entire issue. So I'm going to give it a clean just for safe sake, and we'll go from there. But I think it might just be worth ordering a new one of these.
And you guessed it, after cleaning that sensor and reinstalling it, the car did continue to misfire. So I ordered a Vallejo sensor, which is apparently an OEM sensor for these cars.
Let's try this sensor. Fingers crossed.
The moment of truth. This is by far one of the biggest breakthroughs we've had with trying to fix this car so far. Because that person had the exact same issue and this is how they fixed it, this is the most hopeful I have actually been. And now we've got that sensor installed, it's time to fire it up for the first time.
You know what? I've actually got a good feeling about this one. I don't know why. I think it's literally just for the fact that someone with the same year car, same engine, same everything, has had the same issue and fixed it with the same sensor. So, I don't know. I've got a feeling about this one. I think this could be actually it. This could be it. Imagine if it don't misfire. The relief.
It's going to misfire.
I've got a good feeling, you know. I've got a good feeling. Ignition on. Clutch down. That stinks of fuel, doesn't it? That really smells like fuel. I top it out. You win. Right, cut there. Now, I know pretty much this entire video I have had the parts cannon on my shoulder and I have just been firing it left, right and centre. So what's one more part gonna do any harm? This is my last bullet for this video, and what this is a PCV valve. Now, I have already taken the one that is in the car out of the car, turned the car on, and it has misfired, but the part was already on the way and it was only £6 from Amazon. So while we've got it, we might as well put it in the car. Is it going to make a difference? Let's be honest, no. The amount of things we've checked and changed, it is never going to be this tiny little sensor. But like I say, we've got it now, so we might as well replace it, and I don't know, we will regroup in the morning and think about what's best to do with this car, because how many videos can you actually make trying to diagnose a car and not finding that problem? So let's get this PCV valve on and it make zero difference.
At least one thing good I can say about this car is that everything is pretty easy to work on and everything is pretty easily accessible. So to get this PCV valve off, you just need a 14mm socket, put it around the valve, and then you can just undo it from that rocker cover.
Now, admittedly, I don't really know much about PCVs and valves and PCV valves and how stuff like that works, but with a gift from God, which is hearing, this one isn't really making much of a noise, where this one quite clearly is. Might just be because that one is used and it's got oil in it. That one might be making a noise because it has nothing in it and it's never been used. That's probably the case in it. That's not going to be the difference in why this car's misfiring, but let's try it anyway. Reconnect the hose. There we go. One PCV valve installed. Let's have a guess in the comments as to if this is going to misfire or not. I think we all know the answer. You are taking the piss.
no, we're not doing this again. We are not doing this again. I'm going to leave it a bit longer and see if it misfires. Don't. This is happening, isn't it? It's going to lead me on one more time for today, and it's going to misfire. This is happening one more time. It's going to laugh at me. I know it is. I know you're not going to work. And for the 17th time today, I will walk back in the house and cry. But of course, me being me, I can't just leave things alone, so I jumped out the morning after and just decided to take the spark plugs out, as I was going to look down into the cylinders just to see if there is any remnants of any fuel, which is then when I found this spark plug had actually cracked. So I headed straight back to motor stop, which then we realised something. When I first got these spark plugs, I actually went off the original ones that were already in the engine. But of course, that was all before we realised that this car had had an engine swap. And after talking to Motorstop and talking to Josh from Kia itself, I have actually found out that the spark plugs are actually different. So I gave Motorstop and Kia the reg for a 2017 Ceed GT, which would be the exact same engine as this one, and we actually found out that these are the OEM spark plugs that are meant to come in that car. These are NGK. I know I've spent another £50, but let me tell you why. If we take one of these Bosch plugs that were originally in the car and place it next to the NGK ones, you can quite clearly see that the NGK ones are a tiny little bit longer. I don't know how obvious that is on camera, but they're definitely a little bit longer. And if we actually go from the end of the plug to the end of the plug, the top gets even longer. If this is the case, and that is why this car has been playing up the entire time, it makes perfect sense as to why all the sensors and everything that Woodborough checked and all the sensors that I have changed have made no difference, because that is a mechanical part that wouldn't really throw any fault codes. It'd just misfire without kind of knowing, because the spark plugs technically are doing what they are supposed to be doing, but they are the wrong ones for that engine. Hence why everything we've tried doesn't work. You know what? If this is the reason why this car has been misfiring, that will blow my mind. Something as simple as the spark plugs, and that would obviously be the reason as why they have all four gone so dark, because they're just starving themselves really. And once I turn the car back on after it misfires, there is then fuel in the combustion chamber that spark plug can actually fire off and create that explosion. This has got to be worth a try. There is definitely a difference in them two spark plugs. Let's get them in, let's turn the car on, and let's see if it misfires. If it isn't this, I think I give up. This time I've really got my hopes up. For the first time ever, we've actually found a part that is noticeably different. So I'm going to get the spark plugs in and turn the car on one more time. Honestly, I don't think I've ever been this nervous in my entire life. Imagine this has to be it. There is a literal difference in them spark plugs. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Wow. Where do we even go from here? I literally do not know. Don't get me wrong. Doing this swapping series, I was fully prepared to have some rough days on the driveway, and have some cars that will definitely test me, but I don't think I actually expected one that would quite literally just almost be unrepairable. Like, why this car does that, I do not know. The funny thing is as well, is the lad that we mentioned about earlier in the video with the black Ceed GT, his problem has now come back. After a few more turn-ons, the car is doing the exact same thing. I'll put the video on the screen. It is doing exactly the same as what mine is doing, and he can't get to the bottom of his and I can't get to the bottom of mine. But with his doing it, it kind of confirms that it's nothing because the engine has been swapped. It is just a problem that I can't get to the bottom of, and I don't think anyone else can. I don't know if it's something these engines just do. I did end up putting a video of what this car is doing on the Ceed owners groups on Facebook, and 80% of the comments were people saying it is completely normal for these cars to sometimes do that on cold start when the weather gets cold. But for that to be normal and backfire, I don't think that's normal. What it could be, I wish I could tell you. I actually wish I could tell you what is wrong with this car. Like, where do I go from here? What do I actually do? One thing I have noticed is when I turn the car on and it starts misfiring, if I manually hold the revs down myself, just at about 2000 RPM, it will just rev absolutely normally and won't misfire. As soon as I let off the throttle, it starts misfiring again. It's really bizarre. Cold start has been mapped out, so it's not just a cold start thing, it's just a cold thing, if that makes sense. Once the car's been left for a little bit is when it redoes it. You'd think that was fuel pressure, you'd think it was injector leaking onto the piston. It's not, it's none of them. Well, before I end this video, I better add the NGK plugs. They were 50 quid. That's another £50. And I also better add that PCV valve, CV valve. That was £6. It's literally one of those of how much money do you spend, how much time do you waste, and how much effort do you put into something that, well, according to Facebook, is normal. That car should do that. Yeah, I don't think so. But, yeah, guys, it's stressing me out now because I don't want to carry on making videos of a car with no result, because that is boring content and that doesn't make me happy as a creator. So I don't know what the outcome will be. Goes without saying, if anyone does want to swap me for this car, then let me know what you have got, because you guys have seen the issue. You've seen that it only does it on cold and the car works perfectly fine. Apart from that, if anyone does kind of have a car that they can't get to the bottom of, at this point it's probably worth me just swapping. Or if you've got a car sat around that is just doing nothing, that has some value in it, probably £4,000 I'd say this car is now worth, with it obviously having that issue, then just reach out, because, well, I want to start doing something else, and I've tried everything with this and I kind of refuse to spend any more money. So yeah, we'll end that one there. Again, I am sorry that I haven't got to the bottom of it. I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please drop a like, please drop a comment and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
You wear a hat they call dad. Me, I'm the dad in a hat. You just like clubbing and clothes. Me, I like afternoon naps. 3 I be missed for the road. My oldest like counting racks. My middle one, she's in a dirt bike. My youngest is just like a mama. The mama loves me and I love her, so if she wants something, it's never a bother. 3 little ladies, my babies.